I was a husband constantly mocked for being a freeloader who lived off his wife. Yet there was Miriam screaming at me in public as if I were a stray dog. Even her co-workers joined in the mockery, shouting that I wasn't even worthy of shining the new director's shoes. Her suitor, a man riding high on his status from the corporate headquarters, draped an arm over her shoulder while demanding I bark like a dog, crawl between his legs, and eat a filthy steak right off the pavement. While the crowd waited for me to break and kneel, I calmly instructed my driver to bring over the latest equity draft for the young corporation. On the other end of the line, the chairman exploded in rage and personally ordered that promising director to drop to his knees, slap his own face, and beg for my mercy. The entire crowd stood frozen in shock until Miriam's father rushed to the scene and bowed to me with a trembling voice, calling me Mr. Vance. It was only then that she realized the husband she had treated like a source of shame was actually the master who held her entire family's destiny in his hands. This was the company's annual retreat. Miriam's latest suitor was standing right in front of me, stabbing his finger toward my face while hurling insults. You are nothing but a useless freeloader who leeches off your wife to get a free ride in life. Nobody gave you permission to sit here, so get your ass over to the grill and start cooking for the rest of us. He puffed out his chest with a look of pure arrogance. If you aren't fast enough with those steaks, I will make sure Miriam dumps you once and for all. I slowly stood up, wiped the grease from my hands with a napkin, and looked Miriam in the eye. She was laughing and chatting animatedly with her co-workers, pretending she hadn't seen a single moment of that humiliating scene. I walked straight up to her. Is this how you're going to handle this? Are you really just going to act like nothing happened? The smile on Miriam's face flickered for a second before she masked it with a look of sheer annoyance. Edward, what is wrong with you? Can't you see I am in the middle of a conversation with my colleagues? She didn't even bother to look at me, keeping her eyes fixed on her group of friends. Joey was just joking with you. So why are you being so sensitive? Get over to the grill and help out and stop making a scene here. A joke? I let out a cold laugh. He pointed his finger at me in front of your entire department and called me a pathetic moocher, and you think that counts as a joke? Edward, have you forgotten your place? She slammed her wine glass down on the table. Joey Rollins is the newly appointed director and a rising star in this company. You, on the other hand, are just some nobody my father dragged in off the street. I only brought you into this company so you could actually learn something, not so you could humiliate me like this. I was shaking with rage. He was the one who had roared at me and insulted me in public. Yet somehow, I was the one being accused of being an embarrassment. What else do you expect? She asked with a straight face. If someone insults you, you just ignore it. It is that simple. You are a grown man. So are you really telling me you can't handle a little bit of criticism? Do you have any idea who Joey is? He was sent here directly from headquarters, and even my father has to show him respect. If you embarrass him today, how am I supposed to show my face at work tomorrow? Miriam, I am your husband, I said, my voice trembling slightly. Husband? She let out a sharp laugh. You think you've earned that title? The whispers from the surrounding crowd grew louder as they enjoyed the spectacle. Look at this. The little moocher actually thinks he can talk back to Miriam Young. Who does he think he is? Miriam and Director Rollins are the ones who actually belong together. He actually expects Miriam to defend him, which is just pathetic. Honestly, Miriam, your husband is so fragile. Mr. Rollins just asked him to do a little work. So why is he throwing a tantrum? He is a grown man, and all he had to do was flip a few burgers. So what if he got yelled at? If a man who lives off his wife had any self-respect, he wouldn't be acting like this. Right then, Joey sauntered over with total confidence and draped his arm around Miriam's shoulders. Miriam, babe, why are you wasting your breath on this loser? If he doesn't know how to follow orders, I will be happy to teach him a lesson myself. He rubbed her shoulder as he stared me down with a provocative smirk. Miriam didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into him and shot me a disdainful look. Did you hear that, Edward? Joey is doing you a favor by giving you something to do, so don't be ungrateful. Before I could move, Joey stepped forward and jammed his finger hard into my chest. Are you deaf? I told you to get over to the grill. Didn't you hear me? Do you not speak English? He looked around with a smug grin and addressed the crowd in a booming voice. I am in a great mood today, so how about we let Miriam Young's very attentive husband personally grill for every single one of us? What do you guys think? The crowd immediately erupted into mocking laughter and jeers. I took a deep breath, barely holding back my rage. Then Miriam's voice cut through the noise like a knife. Edward, go, she said in a tone that was clearly an ultimatum. Don't make me get physical with you. I looked up into her cold eyes, and suddenly a smirk played on my lips. Fine, I will grill. I turned around and walked toward the barbecue station while Joey's triumphant laughter echoed behind me. That's a good boy. Now remember, bring Miriam and me 10 thick cut steaks first, and they better be well done. on. If you burn even one of them, you are going to regret it. I didn't look back. I just picked up the tongs and started flipping the steaks over the hot coals. The thick smoke stung my eyes until they watered, making it look like I was crying. Behind me, I could hear the joyous laughter of Joey, Miriam, and the rest of their clique. Miriam, just look at him. He looks like a completely broken man. I still can't figure out why your father ever chose someone like him for you. Joey's voice was perfectly leveled so that every word reached my ears. Miriam let out a cold snort. Don't even get me started. My father is getting old, and he has a habit of being way too soft-hearted for his own good. Another woman in the group giggled as she chimed in. Honestly, Miriam, you and Mr. Rollins are the real power couple here. This Edward guy isn't even fit to shine your shoes. How can a grown man just sit at home all day and live off his wife without feeling any shame at all? Hey now, don't be so mean, Joey said, feigning a defensive tone for me. He is still a man, after all. We should at least let him keep some of his dignity, right, Edward? He raised his voice on purpose to make sure everyone was looking at me. I acted as if I hadn't heard a word, focusing entirely on the steaks I was flipping. When I didn't react, Joey felt ignored and his expression soured instantly. He marched over and kicked the grill with all his might. Sparks flew everywhere as several freshly cooked steaks were knocked onto the ground, landing right in the mud and grass. I'm talking to you, so don't you dare ignore me, you son of a bitch. I slowly looked up and met his gaze with a cold stare. What exactly do you think you're doing? What am I doing? My look clearly set him off because his rage intensified as he grabbed my collar and yanked me forward. I'm going to make sure you understand who is in charge here, Edward. He screamed in my face before pointing down at the filthy steaks on the ground. Pick those up and eat them. The entire area went deathly silent as everyone processed Joey's twisted demand. Even Miriam frowned, clearly realizing that things were going a bit too far. Joey, that is enough, she said, attempting to intervene. But her words only seemed to fuel his aggression. Enough? Miriam, you have to treat animals like this with a firm hand or they will think they can walk all over you. He turned back to me, his face twisted with a sick kind of rage. Did you hear me, Edward? Eat them. I looked him straight in the eyes and spoke very clearly. Are you absolutely sure about this? Of course I am, I said Edward, but before he could finish his threat, I made my move. I didn't even look at the steaks on the ground. Instead, I reached up and grabbed the wrist he was using to hold my collar. I gave it a sharp, violent twist. A blood-curdling scream ripped through the air. The scream was high and jagged, cutting through the silence like a wounded animal. My hand, Joey shrieked as he collapsed onto the grass. He rolled around in agony, cold sweat instantly beading across his forehead. The entire group was paralyzed with shock, unable to believe that the man they had treated like a doormat was capable of such sudden, brutal violence. Edward, what are you doing? Miriam screamed as she rushed toward me. Have you completely lost your mind? Miriam ran over to me, her beautiful face contorted with fury. You actually dared to lay a hand on Joey? Do you have any idea who he is? I met her gaze with a freezing stare. I know exactly who he is. He is the man who is trying to sleep with my wife. Why you? Miriam stammered, her whole body trembling as she raised her hand to slap me. I didn't move or flinch. I just kept my eyes locked on hers. Her hand stopped in midair, frozen by the sheer intensity of my stare. Do not think for 1 second that your little breakdown scares me, she hissed. I'm telling you right now that Joey's uncle is a major shareholder in this company. By attacking him, you have essentially declared war on half of the board of directors. Now you're going to get on your knees this instant, apologize to Joey, and beg for his forgiveness. If you don't, I will throw you out of my house and out of my life. I let out a soft laugh that didn't reach my eyes. An apology? Miriam, have you already forgotten that he started this? He was the one who told me to kneel and try to force me to eat filth off the ground. So what? She shrieked, cutting me off. Look at who he is compared to who you are. The fact that he even bothered to acknowledge you means you should be grateful, yet you had the audacity to fight back. Her twisted, elitist logic actually left me speechless for a moment. I turned away, realizing that arguing with her was a waste of time. At that moment, Joey managed to push through the pain and signaled to a few of his friends. They moved in immediately, surrounding me with an intent that was perfectly clear. You son of a bitch, you actually had the balls to hit me. Joey spat, clutching his broken wrist while he glared at me. Here is how this is going to go. If you get on your knees right now, bark like a dog 3 times, and crawl between my legs, I might let this slide. Otherwise, he said, his face contorting into a hideous grin, I'm going to break both of your legs so you can spend the rest of your life as a literal cripple. Joey, I suggest you think very carefully about the consequences of what you are about to do, I said calmly. Consequences? Joey scoffed as if I'd just told the funniest joke he'd ever heard. What could a loser like you possibly do to me? Let me tell you something, Edward, even if I beat you to death right here, nobody would even think of charging me. I was done talking, so I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. It was picked up on the very first ring. Sir, a calm, professional voice answered. William, come pick me up and notify David Young as well, I said coolly. coolly. Tell him the terms regarding the final beneficiary in the Young Corporation merger need to be revised immediately. You think you can call for help? Joey lunged forward and snatched the phone from my hand, ending the call before throwing the device onto the grass. You pathetic piece of trash. I told you to kneel, and you have the nerve to call someone to back you up? Who the hell are you calling anyway? Some of your broke relatives. The group of sycophants around him burst into another round of laughter. This is hilarious, one of them shouted. Who was he calling? His cousin from the trailer park. I'm going to count to 3, Joey said with growing impatience. If you aren't on your knees by then, don't blame me for what happens next. 1, 2. Every eye was on me, waiting for the moment I would finally crack and collapse. I didn't move a muscle, my expression remaining completely flat. 3. Joey bellowed when he saw I wasn't budging. Fine, you brought this on yourself. He lunged at me again, reaching out with his large hand to grab my collar one more time. I didn't even bother to move out of the way as his hand came toward my chest. Suddenly, a hand shot out from the side and clamped onto his wrist like a vice. Director Rollins, it seems like you are having a bit of a temper tantrum, a voice said. A middle-aged man in a perfectly tailored suit appeared out of nowhere to stand beside me. This was my driver-in-chief of staff, William Wallace. Joey froze for a moment. Who the hell are you? You have a death wish or something? He tried to yank his hand away, but William's grip was like iron. With a slight increase in pressure from William, Joey's face contorted in agony and more sweat began to bead on his forehead. Let go of me. Do you have any idea who I am? I know exactly who you are, Director Rollins, William said in a calm, measured voice. I also know that you are new to this position and your standing is quite fragile. In your situation, I would suggest keeping a much lower profile. Joey glared at William, his eyes filled with a mix of confusion and suspicion. He couldn't understand how a mere driver could possess such an imposing presence. Miriam stepped forward and demanded to know who he was and what he was doing there. William released Joey's hand and gave Miriam a polite nod. Good evening, Miss Young. I am Mr. Vance's driver, and I am here to take him home. As soon as the word driver left his mouth, the entire crowd seemed to let out a collective sigh of relief. Joey's bravado returned instantly once he heard William's title. A pathetic driver thinks he can lecture me? One word from me, and I'll make sure you never work in this city ever again. I have no doubt you have that kind of influence, William replied with a slight nod. However, Director Rollins, before you try to blackball me, perhaps you should consider your own current standing. He turned his back on Joey and walked over to me, respectfully handing me a leather folder. Here are the documents you requested, sir. I took the folder and leafed through the pages. It contained the most recent financial reports for the Young Corporation along with a draft for a massive equity transfer. Joey's eyes caught the bold letterhead of the Young Corporation and his expression shifted. To him, the idea of a moocher's driver carrying internal corporate documents was something out of fairy tale. What is this supposed to be? A magic trick? Joey mocked. You think you can scare me with some fake paperwork like I am some kind of child? He turned to Miriam with a look of pure condescension. Miriam, don't let him fool you with this nonsense. I have dealt with guys like this before. They have no real power, so they resort to these pathetic stunts just to save face. Miriam's face was a storm of conflicting emotions, including rage, shock, and a growing sense of unease. Edward, she said, taking a deep breath, let's just go home and discuss this later. There's no need for that. I interrupted, holding the folder out to her. I think it is much better if we clear everything up right now. I pointed to a specific line in the equity transfer agreement and read it aloud, one word at a time. The moment this agreement is signed, every single one of you, and that includes you, Joey Rollins, will be out. I stopped and let my gaze drift over the increasingly pale faces in the crowd. All of you are going to be fired from the Young Corporation. Or, I said, looking each of them in the eye, you can get on your knees right now and apologize to me. The entire group stood there, completely stunned by my words. A man who lived off his wife was actually threatening to fire the new director and demanding that everyone bow down to him. A second later, the crowd erupted into a tidal wave of hysterical laughter. Are you kidding me? Has he finally lost his mind? He actually wants us to kneel. Who does he think he is, the president? Miriam, your husband is clearly cracked under the pressure. Maybe you should get him to psychiatric ward. Joey was laughing so hard he had tears in his eyes, pointing at me while gasping for air. Look at him. He is not just a loser. He is a total lunatic. Miriam's expression was incredibly dark as she lunged forward and ripped the folder out of my hands. Without saying a word, she ripped the documents into tiny pieces. Edward, have you had enough of this embarrassing display? She screamed at the top of her lungs. Is your goal to destroy my life along with your own? I'm telling you right now that we are finished. Tomorrow I'm going to my father and telling him I want a divorce because I cannot stand the sight of you for another second. At that exact exact moment, a sharp ringtone cut through her rant. It was Joey's phone. He glanced at his screen, and his arrogant expression vanished, replaced by a desperate, fawning smile. "Hello, Chairman. What an honor to hear from you." On the other end of the line, David Young's furious voice was so loud that everyone nearby could hear every word. "Joey, have you lost your mind? What the hell did you do to Mr. Vance?" The smile on Joey's face froze instantly. "Chairman, I don't understand. Which Mr. Vance are you referring to? How many men named Vance do you think I know?" David Young's voice was like an explosion through the speaker. "I am asking if you're currently at the retreat harassing Ethan Vance." "Chairman, there must be some misunderstanding. Ethan was being disrespectful to Miriam and even attacked one of her co-workers. I was simply demanding an apology from him. Please don't worry. I have everything under control and I won't let it escalate." "You complete moron. Do you have any idea what you have done? You actually told Mr. Vance to kneel? Who do you think you are?" Joey felt his heart drop into his stomach as a wave of pure dread washed over him. "Chairman, I swear it was just a joke. We were just messing around." "A joke? To me, it sounds like you were trying to drag my entire family into the grave with you," David screamed. David Young's voice was literally shaking with rage. "Joey, I am ordering you to get on your knees right now and apologize to Mr. Vance. You better beg for his mercy, because if you don't, not even God himself will be able to save you." The line went dead. Joey stood frozen like a statue, his phone still pressed against his ear. That entire screaming match had been heard by everyone nearby, and they were all glancing at each other with looks of pure confusion. It appears Chairman Young has made his position clear. I looked directly at Joey. "So, Director Rollins, are you still planning on breaking both of my legs like you mentioned earlier?" Joey physically flinched as if he had been slapped awake. "No, of course not, Mr. Vance. I was just being stupid and talking trash. It was just a joke, I promise." He forced a smile that looked more like a pained grimace. "I would never actually dream of laying a hand on you." I raised an eyebrow at him. "That's funny, because I remember quite clearly you telling me to bark like a dog and crawl between your legs." Joey's face turned a deep, bruised shade of purple. "I had too much to drink, and I was just talking out of my ass. Please don't take it personally." He suddenly dropped to the ground with a heavy thud, landing right on his knees. "Mr. Vance, I am a total idiot for not recognizing who you were. I am nothing but a worm. Please, have mercy on me and just treat me like the trash I am." As he spoke, he began slapping himself across the face over and over again. I didn't say a single word. I just watched him with a look of cold indifference. "Mr. Vance, I am begging you to forgive me just this one time." When I didn't respond, Joey grabbed my leg and began sobbing hysterically. "This is all my fault. I am a blind, arrogant fool. I will accept any punishment you give me. Just please, I am begging you, don't fire me." "Fire you?" I let out a low, dark chuckle. I think I was very clear when I said that none of you were staying. I let my gaze sweep over the other employees who had been laughing along with Joey just minutes ago. Every single one of them looked away immediately, their faces pale with terror. "Please don't do this, Mr. Vance. We were so wrong, and it will never happen again. Please have mercy. We have families to support and bills to pay." The air was filled with the sound of desperate begging and sobbing. I ignored them and turned my attention back to Miriam. "What about you? Are you going to beg for my forgiveness too?" "Edward, don't push your luck," she snapped. "If it weren't for me supporting you all these years, you would be homeless on the street." Miriam's face was flush with anger as she continued. "These people have been with the company for years. You can't just fire them on a whim. This company used to belong to your family, but now it belongs to me. So tell me, do I have the right to fire them or not?" Miriam shook her head in disbelief. "No, that is impossible. You are lying to me. If you don't believe me, feel free to call your father and ask him." Just as I said that, the roar of powerful engines echoed from down the road. A fleet of black Mercedes-Benz sedans screeched to a halt in front of the resort. The door of the lead car flew open, and a middle-aged man with graying hair practically fell out in his haste. It was David Young, the chairman of the Young Corporation. He didn't even take a second to straighten his suit as he ran toward me, gasping for breath. "Mr. Vance," he stammered. He tried to bow deeply, but William stepped in and quietly stopped him. "Mr. Young, my employer doesn't care for such formalities," William said. David straightened up, his face drenched in sweat. He glanced at Joey on the ground and then at the terrified employees before finally fixing his eyes on his daughter. In that moment, he understood exactly what had happened. A sharp, loud smack rang out across the quiet clearing. David Young had reached out and delivered a brutal slap to Miriam's face. "You blind, arrogant girl," he screamed, his finger trembling as he pointed at her. "I have told you 1,000 times to treat Mr. Vance with nothing but absolute respect. Is this how you listen to me? Do you have any idea what you have done today? You almost dragged this entire family into ruin." Miriam stumbled back from the force of the slap, clutching her stinging cheek while looking at her father in total shock. In her entire life, her father had never even raised his voice to her, let alone laid a hand on her. "Dad, you actually hit me?" she asked, her eyes eyes welling with tears as she looked at him with pure disbelief. You hit me over some outsider? All I did was tell him to apologize to Director Rollins. So why is that such a big deal? Besides, he is the one who started the violence by attacking Joey. Before David could even respond, I cut in with a cold voice. You call that an apology? Was that an apology, or were you trying to crush a man's dignity in front of the entire world? Furthermore, I am your legally wedded husband, yet you have the nerve to flirt with other men right in front of my face. You are nothing but a parasite, and if it weren't for my father, nobody would even look at a loser like you. And yet here you are, acting like you are someone important. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't even be allowed through the gates of this resort. And now you think you can lecture me? Another loud slap echoed through the air as David struck her again. Shut up. I don't want to hear another single word out of your mouth. His face was dangerously red, and he looked like he was on the verge of a stroke. He is the true head of the Young Corporation now, and every single one of our paychecks is issued only because he signs them. There is no way he is the head of this family. Dad, you must be— Miriam tried to argue. If you say one more word, I will personally ruin you, David hissed, cutting her off before turning to bow to me. Mr. Vance, please accept my deepest apologies for my failure as a father that led to you being treated this way. I'm going to deal with Joey Rollins and the rest of these fools immediately by clearing them all out of this company. I give you my word that you will never have to see any of them ever again. When he heard those words, Joey's strength left him and he collapsed onto the grass. No, Chairman, please, I am begging you. I have given years of my life to this company and I have sacrificed everything for it. Shut up. David roared at the top of his lungs. By offending Mr. Vance, you have made yourself the primary enemy of the entire Young family. Now get out of my sight. Two security guards stepped forward and dragged the sobbing, struggling Joey away. The rest of the co-workers were white with fear, remaining frozen in their kneeling positions. Chairman, it was Joey who forced us to go along with him. Please just give us one more chance. Mr. Vance, we were so wrong, and we know how generous of a man you are. But their pleas came too late. One by one, the security team escorted them off the property. Within a few short minutes, the once rowdy retreat was left completely deserted. Mr. Vance, David said, his voice still wavering with anxiety. Are you satisfied with how I have handled this? I didn't answer him, instead walking straight up to Miriam. So tell me, are you still interested in getting that divorce? Miriam looked up at me, her eyes a storm of confusion and desperation. Since you aren't answering, I will take that as a yes. I turned my back on her and looked at David Young. Have your legal team contact me first thing tomorrow morning because I want the divorce papers finalized. David visibly flinched as his face went from pale to a sickly shade of gray. Mr. Vance, please, I am begging you not to do this, he stammered, rushing toward me with such desperation that even William couldn't stop him. Miriam was just being foolish, and she already regrets what she did. So please just give her one more chance. The Young family literally cannot survive without your support. I calmly reached down and removed his hand from my sleeve. Mr. Young, you should be grateful that I'm not planning on filing a lawsuit against your daughter. She conspired with outsiders to publicly humiliate her husband, and if I chose to pursue legal action, things would get very ugly for her. As for chances, I paused for a moment. I have given her countless chances over the years, and she is the one who chose to throw them all away. No, I will not get a divorce. It seemed that reality had finally set in for Miriam. She suddenly threw herself at my feet and wrapped her arms around my legs. Edward, I was so wrong, and I see that now. She looked up at me with a face covered in tears and eyes that were bright red. Please don't leave me, please. I will do whatever you want from now on. I promise I will listen to everything you say. You still love me, don't you? You worked so hard to marry into this family because of that love. So how can you just throw me away like this? Her words were so delusional that they were almost funny. The only reason I had married her was to secure a legal identity that would allow me to infiltrate the Young Corporation and finalize my acquisition of the entire industry supply chain. Let go of me, I said, my voice as cold as shards of ice. I won't let go until you promise that we aren't getting a divorce. Miriam tightened her grip on my legs. David Young stood nearby, drenched in sweat, but too terrified to say a single word. Mr. Vance, you can see that she is truly repentant. If you agree to stay married, I am willing to agree to any terms you set. Is that so? Then why don't you tell me exactly what leverage the Young family has left to negotiate with me? I stared directly at David. He opened his mouth to speak, but found he had no words left. I looked back down at Miriam and told her that if she didn't let go of me immediately, I would be forced to use physical force. My voice was a low whisper that carried a dangerous edge. Miriam's grip on my legs faltered as she sensed the threat. I took a sharp step back and finally put some distance between us. William, let's get out of here. Right away, sir, he replied. Mr. Young, regarding the divorce, my attorney will be at your office tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock sharp. David Young looked like a man man who had lost everything as he turned and shuffled back toward his car. As he passed his daughter who was still sobbing on the ground, he couldn't help but let out one last burst of fury. "Miriam, I told you to listen to me. How could you be so incredibly stupid?" He was physically shaking with rage. "I handed you a perfect marriage on a silver platter, and you chose to destroy it with your own hands. From this moment on, you are on your own, so good luck cleaning up the mess you made." I didn't bother going into the office the next day, instead letting William handle all the legal details of the divorce. David Young was smart enough not to put up a fight, signing every single document I put in front of him without a word of protest. From that moment on, all ties between Miriam and me were severed for good. Later that afternoon, William brought the finalized paperwork to my penthouse. It was my first time actually spending time there, and the floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the Los Angeles skyline. "Everything has been finalized, sir," William said as he placed the folder on the coffee table. He added that the Young Corporation Board of Directors had requested my presence at an emergency meeting the following morning. I gave him a nod and dismissed him for the day. I arrived at the Young Corporation headquarters the next morning for the meeting. When the introduction was made and they realized I was the actual founder of Apex Capital, the room went so quiet you could have heard a pin drop. I didn't waste any time on small talk, moving straight to announcing two major appointments. First, my chief of staff, William Wallace, would be officially taking over as the new CEO of the Young Corporation. Second, I was promoting a young employee named Sarah Thompson to the position of marketing director. During that miserable retreat, Sarah had been the only person who didn't join in the mockery. While everyone else was busy insulting me, she had quietly handed me a bottle of water when she thought no one was looking. Sarah was completely frozen when she heard her name called, only snapping out of it when the person sitting next to her gave her a nudge. She looked at me with wide eyes, her face a mask of pure disbelief. I gave her a small, encouraging nod to confirm that she had heard me correctly. I have always believed that someone who is willing to show kindness when a person is at their lowest has a character that is worth more than any resume. As I walked out of the building after the meeting, I spotted a familiar figure waiting by the curb. It was Miriam. She saw me and immediately hurried over, but she stopped several feet away as if she were afraid to get any closer. "Edward," she whispered. I didn't slow down for a second, walking right past her as if she were a total stranger. "Edward," she cried out behind me, her voice breaking with sobs. "I don't want this divorce. I love you. I really do love you. I know I made a mistake, so please just give me one more chance to start over." I stopped and turned to look at her, a cynical smile touching my lips. "You love me?" "Miriam, please stop the performance. This act isn't just pathetic, it is honestly exhausting. When you thought I was a nobody, you looked down on me because I didn't fit the image of the wealthy, high-status husband you wanted to show off to your friends. Now that you know my real identity, you have decided that what you actually want is power and money. That is the only reason you are back here begging me for another chance. You have never stopped to ask yourself one simple question. If you stripped away the money and the status, who is it that you actually love?" With that, I turned my back on her and started to walk away. "Edward, you can't just leave," Miriam screamed, scrambling up from the ground to block my path. "You took away my job and forced my father out of the company. So how am I supposed to survive? You are literally destroying my life." As she screamed at me with that desperate, contorted face, any remaining pity I had for her vanished completely. "Destroying your life? Miriam, you are the one who chose this path, one selfish step at a time. You spent years enjoying every benefit I provided while simultaneously despising me and helping others humiliate me. If you had stood up for me even once during that retreat, things might not have ended up like this. Have you ever stopped to think about what would have happened to me if I really were just an ordinary man with no power?" She stood there, unable to find a single word to say. She knew exactly what the answer was, because if I had been a regular man, I would have been beaten, humiliated, and tossed out onto the street with nothing. Starting tomorrow, my legal team will begin reclaiming the house, the cars, and every single gift I ever bought for you. Whatever happens to you now is no longer my concern. I stepped around her and got into my car, leaving Miriam behind to sob. Under Williams' firm leadership, the Young Corporation underwent a massive restructuring and the business quickly stabilized. As for Joey Rollins, he tried to use every connection he had to find a new job. He quickly discovered that he had been blacklisted by the entire industry, as nobody was willing to hire someone who had crossed the line. A man who was once a rising star had become a complete pariah in the business world. I eventually heard that he ran up massive gambling debts and had both of his legs broken by loan sharks. He is now a permanent cripple who spends his days begging for change on the street. The co-workers who had joined him in mocking me didn't fare much better. Every once in a while, Sarah Thompson would mention something about Miriam during our briefings. "Sir, I saw Miriam outside the building today, and she seemed to be looking for work, but apparently no one will hire her. security wouldn't let her in, so she just stood on the sidewalk for hours. I also heard some rumors that she has started working at a local dive bar to make money. I never offered any comment on the updates, simply listening in silence. She was the one who chose this path, so she was the one who had to walk. A year later, I was reviewing some files in my office when Sarah gave a soft nod and stepped inside. Over the past year, she had shed her initial shyness and transformed into a sharp, confident professional. Sir, here is the marketing strategy for the upcoming quarter, she said. I reviewed the documents for a moment before giving her a satisfied nod. A bright smile lit up Sarah's face at my praise. Oh, I almost forgot to tell you, sir, she added. I'm getting married next month. Is that so? I looked up at her, genuinely surprised. Congratulations. Sarah, thank you so much, sir, she said, looking a bit bashful. I was actually wondering if you might have time to attend the ceremony. I would be honored, I replied with a smile. Just send me the details, and I will be there. Sarah's wedding was held at a modest hotel, and while it wasn't a lavish affair, every detail was filled with a sense of genuine warmth. I arrived a few minutes early and took a quiet seat in the back, wanting to avoid drawing any attention to myself. The ceremony began with some heartfelt words from the officiant. The bride and groom walked down the aisle hand in hand, their faces glowing with pure, unadulterated happiness. I looked at Sarah up there and felt truly happy. Good people deserve to have happy endings. The true cruelty of this story does not lie in the humiliation itself, but in the fact that Miriam never actually loved me. She was only ever in love with the specific value a person could bring to her life. When she looked at me as a loser, my dignity meant absolutely nothing to her. But the moment I gained control over her future, she started crying and claiming she loved me. That isn't love, it is a cold business transaction. Real love isn't just a bit of kindness reserved for when you're useful to someone. The more important question we should all ask is this: if you stripped away all your status and success today, how many people would actually stay by your side? Would you still be able to respect the man? True confidence doesn't come from being married or the car you drive. It comes from knowing you deserve respect, even when you have absolutely nothing left. Sarah Thompson didn't have to do much. She simply handed me a bottle of water while everyone else was busy laughing. That small act of kindness ended up bringing her everything that Miriam fought for and ultimately lost. This world can be elitist and cruel, yet it remains fundamentally fair because the way you treat other people is exactly how destiny will eventually treat you. People who treat others like animals will eventually find themselves living a life far worse than they should. Meanwhile, the person who offered a simple bottle of water deserves every bit of happiness she can. You have the choice to be that person who offers kindness. You don't need wealth or power to make that choice. All it takes is staying silent when the crowd is mocking someone and refusing to kick a man while he's down. Does it cost you anything to be a decent person? It costs absolutely nothing, yet it earns you the greatest reward possible. It isn't about building wealth. It is about being able to lay your head down without feeling a single ounce of shame in your actions. That clear conscience is the only true form of freedom, and it is something that no amount of money can ever buy.